cue in 3, 2, 1, and we're live. Beautiful. Michael, appreciate you joining, my friend. Thank you for joining us on B2B Mentors today. As a quick way to get started, give us a 60-second synopsis on your background in your career and what led you to where you're at in your life today.
Great. Hey, Connor, great to be here. My name is Mike Griego. I run a company called MXL Partners. We provide sales effectiveness training and coaching for teams and managers, companies all around the world. I'm raised in Southern California. I'm now in the Bay Area. Been up here for many, many years, and my career has been in sales, from selling books door to door in college to then going to business school. That's up here at Stanford. Been up here ever since, in the area, driving with companies like IBM and Storage Tech, Gartner Group, and now for 20 years have been actually consulting with MXL Partners, helping companies to just be more effective, leveraging all that experience. I've been married 40 years, and I got 3 kids and a bunch of grandkids. So it's a good life.
Yeah, that's beautiful. It's got to be a lot of fun. And what is it you're seeing right now? What is it that these sales teams are doing ineffectively that's still driving a high demand for sales leaders, trainers, leaders, just like you?
Well, it's been an interesting run over several decades. And of course, all the enterprise selling and the evolution of good sales practices and processes and tools has been a natural growth path that's been powerful and good. Of course, we've had some ups and downs over the dot-com bust, and again 2008, and here we are again with COVID. And however, we're pulling out of this. I think the fundamentals never go away. I do see some issues with new generations of salespeople and how we effectively communicate, but also the buyers have gotten a lot shrewder in how they engage with salespeople. So in many ways, the way we engage with customers is as critical as ever. The way we talk to customers and prospects is even more critical than it used to be, and that's the real skill. And then the final thing is on the managing of teams is huge. It's lots of dysfunction in how teams are managed and how they grow and scale, and there's lots of rooms for some optimization there.
Absolutely. So what is it? I guess the thing that would be really valuable to touch on is, you mentioned buyers changing. What ways have they changed? And what are some of the approaches, even in the last couple of years, that have changed for sellers? And especially in the post-COVID era, what are you teaching your clients? What are you talking about in that case?
Yeah, great question. Traditionally, we've learned, say, particularly over the last 20 years, there's a lot of emphasis of some of the research and discussions with customers that they move through these natural motions naturally, whether they know it or not. But that is, something stimulates their interest, or they go through a stage of consideration of something, changing the status quo, buying something, looking at something new, and then they go through some evaluation process. So once they decide, okay, I think we're going to do this, let's talk to vendors, let's talk to people. So they go through a test drive, a trial, proof of concepts, some type of evaluation, and then they make some decisions on who they're going to buy from. So 3 major motions. Some are very deliberate in how they go through. Many are just talking to vendors, thinking about it, making some decisions, going on, doing demos. However, the wise salespeople, therefore, map to that buying process with an effective sales process per their product and solution. So there's some debate out there in the sales world, and companies have kind of done some research and thought about the more sophisticated buyer, particularly over the last 5 to 10 years, are further along that process. In other words, before they call a vendor and say, hey, Mr. Salesperson, I need a quote, or I need some information on this or this, they have already done a lot of the consideration, a lot of even internal testing, budgeting, all that, and qualification. So they're down the pike further. That's a very true point in some cases, but I think it's something that the way salesperson needs to check and see where is the buyer in this. And I always teach a classic question where no matter whether you know or not the buyer is, you ask a question such as, Mr. Customer, so tell me, I'm curious, where are you? And in terms of what's the process for making a decision on what we've been talking about here, and who else besides yourself, of course, would be involved? So a very powerful question. It utilizes the P word, I call it. What's the process for making a decision? And the other part of the double whammy there is who besides yourself is involved. So I'm going to get two things there. I'm going to get the process. And what happens is every customer has a process. So they'll say, well, Mike, frankly, we're pretty well down the pike here. We've been talking to a lot of people, we've been working at this for a few months, but here's where we're at today. So good, I know that now. Or if they say, you know what, Mike, we're just getting started here. So, actually, I reached out to you, we're calling you guys, but, talking to others, frankly. So I know they're early. So those are ways that salespeople can kind of understand where they are in that motion.
And I think a lot of salespeople miss that step. They end up wasting a lot of time with buyers way down the line and didn't really figure out where they are in the process. So what you're suggesting is literally ask them, where are you? Where are you in this? Are you 6 months out? Are you 2 years out? Are you a day out? Like where are you at?
Yeah, you get a lot of good insight from that, and you learn to ask the question and then be quiet and listen carefully, because they're about to give you a lot of good information that is great fodder to work with, particularly if they say also in answer to the second part of that question, which is who else is involved. They'll say, well, of course, there's me and I'm talking to various vendors, but then there's Sally. It's like, well, who's Sally? And then you find out about other people, then you can understand their internal committees and things like that. So very powerful for salespeople to get that kind of work done up front. Now, the other part of your question was, though, Connor, about what's going on today and how we're advising people. And so if overall, I think a theme of good selling is to have good questioning, good conversation, good awareness of where you are and where the customer is in the cycle or process. In an environment like this, or a down economy, or where things are in stall mode, or there's lots of uncertainty, it's particularly important for the wise salespeople to. I liken it to how we respond to even our friends, our family and friends, and that is to ask questions, be hypersensitive, understand everybody's kind of reeling at some level. And so it's a sense of being sensitive to people, not to say, hey, you want to see a demo? Hey, how you doing? Good. Okay, let's get right to it. I got some great stuff here. I think I can help you. Rather is to ask questions. How's it going? How are you? How's it impacting you? And if you can kind of pre-think some of the potential impactful things happening to that prospect, either at their title level or their company or industry or market level, then actually you come to the sales to the sales situation or the opportunity, whether it's early or late, with some real empathy, some real wisdom, and a perspective that actually is appreciated. Such as, Mr. Customer, I understand, as I've been talking to others, particularly your size businesses in this environment, is that a lot of people are still sorting through their headcounts, or they're sorting through their budgets, or in some cases, a lot of things have been put on hold and they're pushing things out. I'm wondering how are you guys dealing with this right now? What's happening over there? So therefore, what I'm offering up is a few, what I pre-thought are some logical potential hurdles or issues they're facing, and I'm showing sensitivity to them, and also knowledge of them. And then I'm offering up a open-ended question. Like, I don't know, you tell me, I'm seeing this, how about you? And give them a chance to say, well, Mike.
Is that your phone or is that mine?
It's mine.
Oh, okay. I just want to make sure. Could you silence that for me real quick?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thanks, man.
So it allows the salesperson to show empathy and sensitivity at the same time, give the customer a chance to respond, say, yeah, it's not that one or that one, but actually this one is something we're struggling with. And then right now I then know, well, let's talk about that. Let's drill into that a little bit. So,
and something you've also talked about and mentioned is the mismatch in targeting and penetrating new accounts, and how it sounds very simple, right? People are talking to the wrong prospects. But what does that really mean? Like, what does that mean for you? How do B2B sellers navigate that?
yeah, you're right. It would seem relatively simple. In fact, one of the things I learned as I got into kind of sales, I always got into, the simplest of sales, which was the dumb college kid selling door to door. Did it for 3 summers as a sophomore, junior.
Hey, I was that dumb college kid too.
I mean, my last summer, I'd make $10,000 in a summertime. 10 weeks of it, the average kid can make 2,500. This is back in the day with a company called Southwestern, which was an awesome training ground for dumb college kids to kind of develop. But so I'd learned that basics of selling. And then as I got into more sophisticated enterprise selling, like IBM and other kind of technology and firms and companies, I just learned that there was always this need to isolate, prioritize on a territory. Now, of course, in the book business, selling in the countrysides of Ohio and Western Pennsylvania, then every house is a prospect. You just cover everything really tight in one county all summer. In the IBM business or any other technology business, you have territories that are either zip codes or states or regions or industries or certain select targets. In all those cases, you have to prioritize. So if I'm given 50 accounts, 25 accounts, 100 accounts, or hundreds of accounts, what if we're not careful, what happens to us is we just take the leads from the marketing campaigns, or we say, oh, that's the big account, I got to call that one because that's a big name, and or this one's flying in, so that's a good one. So we just go scattershot. And now, if we have a good product and you can actually be successful and think you're a pretty hotshot salesperson, the reality is that you're probably leaving a lot on the table. You're missing a lot of things, and there's no systematic approach to that. So what we emphasize, and it's a relatively simple thing. I started implementing this once I kind of learned the concept and started driving it when I was manager of teams. I did it myself, and it helped me be successful. I was the #1 guy 1 year at a company, and then they raised my quota and took away some accounts. So I sat in my office in January, and I thought, how am I going to do this again? And I implemented this, what I call a prioritization model, which, essentially I had 600 named situations to go after. Some were prospects, some were customers, and they took away 200. So now I had 400. And so I had to think, okay, how am I going to do this again? And, what we typically do is take the list either out of our database and we just start top of the list and start calling people, or take the biggest ones. I just spent it took me 2 hours, 2.5 hours in my office that morning. And it really made the whole year. Because what I did is I started just thinking simply, logically. It's like, if I had to stratify this, ABC, A's are companies that, maybe they bought X amount last year, maybe they at least got a little less, they bought, 0 to this amount. Okay, ABC. And then I had maybe another set of ABCs that would say, companies like, how much could they buy given where they're at today? Well, that company, they're dying. I think they're probably going to get 0 out of them. Won't even get the renewal. This company, I think, could double. And so I had another ABC strata list. So then, and actually you're setting up 2 sets of ABC variables, and you can actually just put that in a spreadsheet. And it's a simple thing that we would naturally think of doing. If you try to do it in your head, we don't think in those 2 dimensions often, but I do it in a spreadsheet. It took me that. I didn't do it with 400. I did it with 80. And I just banged out 80 accounts, got some numbers from accounting, made some projections, and then I did it. And suddenly I saw a top 10 list. I saw a top 50 list. And then I thought about it, and I thought, and it actually literally hit me like a visceral ton of bricks, because I thought, oh my goodness, there were some big companies there that I saw that's where the action really was, but they were getting buried, if you think of 400 accounts. And there's a lot of noise in having that much territory. So it forced me to think of my top 5, my top 10, put together game plans. And that's what I did. And I
We
actually,
complicate it. We overcomplicate
it was amazing. And
Yeah.
it's simple. And it's amazing to me how simple that is, but yet most people don't do it. And so
Yeah.
that's
Well,
the
as sellers, we're apt to bang, 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 just go out there and just start pushing and shoving. And then taking that step back and aligning and organizing a little bit can make big difference. Big difference.
absolutely.
Definitely. So in a second, I'm going to ask you about the know, like, and trust factor and using that and leveraging that and building that in a COVID era when face-to-face is restricted. Before we get there, a reminder, guys, you're listening to B2B Mentors. Those of you who are watching on the live stream, if you want the rest of the episode, make sure you go subscribe on all your favorite podcast apps. B2B Mentors. Going to end the live stream now.